Lying in her bed, Queen Kaushalya of Ayodhya appeared frail and worn. All of 40, her prematurely grey hair seemed incongruous against her dark, still gleaming skin. Though short in stature, she'd once been strong. In a culture that valued women for their ability to produce heirs, being childless had broken her spirit. Despite being the senior most wife, King Dashrath acknowledged her only on ceremonial occasions. At most other times, she was relegated to obscurity, a fact that ate away at her. All she desired was a fraction of the time and attention that Dashrath lavished on his favorite wife, Kaikeyi. She was keenly aware that giving birth to an heir, hopefully Dashrath's first son, had the potential to dramatically alter her status. No wonder then that today her spirit was all fired up, even though her body was weak. She had been in labor for more than 16 hours, but she barely felt the pain. She soldiered on determinedly, refusing the doctor her permission to perform a surgical procedure to extract her baby from her womb. My son will be born naturally, announced Kaushalya firmly. A natural birth was considered more auspicious. She had no intention of putting the future prospects of her child at risk. He will be king one day, continued Kaushalya. He will be born with good fortune. Nilanjana sighed. She wasn't even sure if the child would be a boy, but she wouldn't risk the merest flagging of her mistress' spirits. She administered some herbal pain relievers to the queen and bided her time. Ideally, the doctor wanted the birth to take place before midday. The royal astrologer had warned her that if the child was born later, he would suffer great hardships throughout his life. On the other hand, if the child was born before the sun reached its zenith, he would be remembered as one of the greatest among men and would be celebrated for millennia. Nilanjana cast a quick glance at the Prahar lamp, which measured time in 6-hour intervals. The sun had already risen, and it was the third hour of the second Prahar. In another 3 hours, it would be midday. Nilanjana had decided to wait till a half hour before noon, and if the baby was still not born, she would go ahead with the surgery. Kaushalya was stricken with another bout of dilatory pain. She pursed her lips together and began chanting in her mind the name she had chosen for her child. This gave her strength, for it wasn't an ordinary name. The name she had picked was that of the sixth Vishnu. Vishnu was the title given to the greatest of leaders who were remembered as the propagators of good. The sixth man to have achieved this title was Lord Parshuram. That is how he was remembered by the common folk. Parshu means X, and the word had been added to the name of the sixth Vishnu because the mighty battle axe had been his favorite weapon. His birth name was Ram. That was the name that reverberated in Kaushalya's mind. Ram, 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 Ram. The fourth hour of the second Prahar saw Dashrath battle ready. He had hardly slept the previous night, his self-righteous rage having refused to dissipate. He had never lost a battle in his life, but this time it was not mere victory that he sought. Redemption now lay in his vanquishing that mercenary trader and squeezing the life out of him. The Ayodhyan emperor had arranged his army in a Suchi Vyuha, the needle formation. This was because Kuber's hosts had planted dense thorny bushes all around the Karachapa fort. It was almost impossible to charge from the landward side of the port city. Dashrath's army could have cleared the bushes and created a path to charge the fort, but that would have taken weeks. Kuber's army had scorched the earth around Karachappa, and the absence of local food and water ensured that Dashrath's army did not possess the luxury of time. They had to attack before they ran out of rations. More importantly, Dashrath was too angry to be patient. Therefore, he had decided to launch his attack from the only strip of open land that had access to the fort of Karachappa, its beach. The beach was broad by usual standards, but not enough for a large army. Hence, Dashrath's tactical decision to form a Suchi Vyuha. The base troops, along with the emperor, would man the front of the formation, while the rest of the army would fall in a long column behind. They intended a rolling charge, where the first lines would strike the Lankan ranks and after 20 minutes of battle slip back, allowing the next line of warriors to charge in. It would be an unrelenting surge of brave Sapt Sindhu soldiers aiming to scatter and decimate the enemy troops of Kuber. Ashwapati nudged his horse a few steps ahead and halted next to Dashrath. Your Highness, he said, are you sure about this tactic? Don't tell me you're having second thoughts, King Ashwapati, remarked Dashrath, surprised by the words of caution from his normally aggressive father-in-law. He had been a worthy ally in most of Dashrath's conquering expeditions throughout the realms of India. I was thinking we will not be using our numerical superiority in full strength. The bulk of our soldiers will be behind the ones charging up front. They will not be fighting at the same time. Is that wise? It is the only way, believe me, asserted Dashrath confidently. Even if our first charge is unsuccessful, the soldiers at the back will keep coming in waves. We can sustain our onslaught on Kuber's eunuch forces till they all die to the last man. I do not see it coming to that though. I will annihilate them with our first charge. Ashwapati looked to his left where Kuber's ships lay at anchor more than 2 kilometers into the sea. There was something strange about their structure. The front section, the bow, was unusually broad. What role will those ships play in the battle? Nothing, dismissed Dashrath, smiling fondly at his father-in-law, while Dashrath had had experience of a few naval battles. Ashwapati hadn't. Those fools haven't even lowered their rowboats from the vessels. Even if they have a reserve force on those ships, they cannot be brought into battle quickly enough. It will take them at least a few hours to lower their rowboats, load their soldiers, and then ferry them to the beach to join the battle. By then, we would have wiped out the soldiers who are inside the fort. Outside the fort, corrected Ashwapati, pointing towards Karachappa. Raavan had, strangely, abandoned the immense advantage of being safe within the walls of the well-designed fort. Instead of lining them up along the ramparts, he had chosen to arrange his army of probably 50,000 soldiers in a standard formation outside the city on the beach. It is the strangest tactic I have ever seen, said Ashwapati warily. Why is he giving up a strategic advantage? With the fort walls being right behind his army, he does not even have room to retreat. Why has Raavan done this? Dashrath sniggered. Because he is a reactionary idiot. He wants to prove a point to me. Well, I will make the final point when I dig my sword into his heart. Ashwapati turned his head towards the fort walls again as he surveyed Raavan's soldiers. Even from this distance he could see Raavan wearing his hideous horned helmet, leading his troops from the front. Ashwapati cast a look at his own army. The soldiers were roaring loudly, hurling obscenities at their enemy as warriors are wont to do before the commencement of war. He turned his gaze to Ravan's army once again. In sharp contrast, they emanated no sound. There was no movement either. They stood quietly in rigid formation, a brilliant tribute to soldierly discipline. A shiver ran down Ashwapati's spine. He couldn't get it out of his mind that those soldiers were bait that Dashrath had chosen to take. If you are a fish charging at bait, then it usually doesn't end well. Ashwapati turned towards Dashrath to voice his fears, but the emperor of the Sapt Sindhu had already ridden away.